If I learned anything from making videos for strangers on the internet, it's there are literally hundreds of ways you could piss off a Star Wars fan. I think it all started when I called a lightsaber a laser sword in one of my videos. It's not called a laser sword, it's called a lightsaber.
I know, God!
A lot of people got upset, but in my defense, Anakin calls it a laser sword in episode 1. And if your excuse was he's a kid, Luke calls it a laser sword in episode 8. Speaking of episode 8, let's talk about the greatest Star Wars movie ever made, The Last Jedi. The best thing about episode 8 is that you're introduced to some of the best Star Wars characters ever created. Women in Star Wars were really just not strong enough before The Last Jedi. And if you ask me, Return of the Jedi was a sexist, misogynistic piece of crap. Luke was being abused by his father, and it is never okay to try to save your abuser. What kind of message are they sending to children in this movie? Speaking of children, the worst thing they ever did in a Star Wars movie was kill all those younglings. You know, some people say that they could have just kept that going for 20 minutes, just slaughtering children over and over, and people would have watched it. And I think that that's ridiculous. In fact, the whole prequel trilogy is crap. A 7-minute laser sword fight over a river of molten lava is really dumb, and it's just not visually striking to me at all. Ewan McGregor was a bad Obi-Wan. I mean, look at this acting.
You were the chosen one!
He's definitely phoning it in here. I can't even watch this. The only watchable thing about the prequels is when C-3PO is doing funny robot stuff, or Jar Jar. The prequel also probably has the worst villain of all time, Darth Maul. He is so dumb that he put 2 lasers in his sword. It's supposed to have one, stupid. You look like an amateur. Go home. Speaking of amateur, they made Liam Neeson a Jedi. He's like the least badass actor I've ever heard of. His only other well-known role is in Ted 2. Terrible casting choice, George. They also made a bunch of terrible wardrobe choices in the prequels too, like when Padme gets a bunch of her clothes ripped off. Yeah, that was disgusting. You know what else no one wants to see? The original theatrical releases of episode 4, 5, and 6. Fans that can't accept the 27th remastered version of these films are honestly toxic and not even real Star Wars fans if you ask me. I mean, the original voice of Boba Fett was boring.
He's no good to me dead. What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
And changing things like Han shooting first to Greedo shooting first, and then changing it to them shooting at the same time, and then changing it to Han moving his neck, and then adding Greedo yelling McClunky actually really adds to the story, and I think it was just a great change, and they didn't screw it up at all. Maybe the only thing I would do different would be keep the blood-curdling screams of Luke Skywalker when he yeets himself off this platform. Honestly, this part was just lame anyways. I am your father. Couldn't George have come up with a better line? I don't know. I'm out here living my best life, Luke. Or maybe you could have started flossing or something. I don't know. Something that Rian Johnson would have done, you know? Just inserting random bits of humor and jokes all over the place just really helps the flow of the movie. I think the Disney trilogy is actually the best out of all 3 trilogies. My favorite part was how they brought back Palpatine. Palpatine coming back as a clone with zero explanation. I think it really pushed the limits of long-form storytelling in a way that we as a species have never seen before. Obviously, bringing back Palpatine makes Rey the chosen one. I think Anakin being the chosen one was never really George's original vision, and I'm glad Disney fixed that for him. I mean, what else did Disney fix? Oh, I like how they killed everyone I ever cared about. I like how Rey was so powerful. The only thing I didn't like was Adam Driver. What a weirdo. That guy just couldn't pull it off. Definitely was not carrying that collapsing franchise on his back. Definitely not. At least he was part of the Knights of Ren, which in my opinion was a great addition to Star Wars and made complete sense. Disney really has just been knocking it out of the park with Star Wars. For instance, their Battlefront game is the best one ever made. And I think their only big misstep is bringing back the Clone Wars and not killing off Baby Yoda.